Delayed ejaculation, anorgasmia, desensitization. Different ways of describing pretty much the same thing: difficulty or inability to climax during sex. If you've never had this, it might sound like a good thing, right? A lot of people out there struggle with premature ejaculation, which I've made a video on before, or their standards are just skewed from the pornography that they're watching. And they think, oh, I'd want to last longer. That sounds like a blessing. But the men who actually have delayed ejaculation or anorgasmia find it quite frustrating. They can probably have an orgasm while masturbating alone with a computer screen, watching porn, but when they're with their partner, whom they love, they're very attracted to, they can't get there. They can't reach climax. And of course, you can enjoy sex without climax, but if it's off the table, if it doesn't feel like it's an option for you, then it's quite frustrating. And it can be frustrating for one's partner as well, because he or she probably wants to see you enjoy sex to the fullest, be able to bring you to orgasm. Otherwise, they might feel like they're not attractive enough or not a skilled enough lover. And that can be difficult for both people in that relationship. In my experience, the most common cause of delayed ejaculation is one's pornography use and their masturbation habits. If you've seen anything on this channel before, you know about how pornography use, the modern streaming porn, you can get unlimited access to unlimited variety of content that over time, months, years, decades, that causes you to become desensitized to sexual stimulation and tends to escalate one's sexual preferences beyond what vanilla sex as a term encompasses. And in that process, people often find that they have more difficulty enjoying real sex, reaching climax with a partner, and even being able to have sex at all. In my case, I had porn-induced erectile dysfunction, which, if you have delayed ejaculation caused by your porn use and masturbation habits, if you continue down that path, it will probably lead to ED, erectile dysfunction, at some point. I had both. Once I had been porn free for long enough that my ED was gone and I was able to have sex, I still had the delayed ejaculation, DE. And it took me many more months after that before I was reliably able to enjoy sex as much as I should and reach climax with a partner. And I've found that that's often the case among people I work with. Not everyone who has a porn problem struggles with ED or DE. Some of them have PE, premature ejaculation, often when they've trained themselves to climax as quickly as possible because that's how they used porn, that's how they masturbated. Others train themselves to stave off orgasm as long as possible, edging and consuming content for hours. And it's those people who are more likely to develop delayed ejaculation. Now, masturbation habits themselves and the way that you touch yourself, the way that you masturbate physically can also be desensitizing on a physical level. If you are giving yourself stimulation that is very alien, very unlike intercourse and penetration, and is more stimulating, applies more pressure or more friction than intercourse would, then when you get to intercourse with a real partner, that's not going to feel very stimulating, or it's going to feel strange. It's not going to hit your buttons in the way that you've trained your body to respond to stimulation. So this happens when you develop what's called death grip, which is where you're using your hand and applying much more force than you would experience during real sex, and or you're not using lubrication, which definitely exacerbates this. It can also happen to people who are prone masturbators who lie on their stomach and either hump into an object or into their hands, and this applies a lot more pressure and force than penetration and intercourse does as well. And both of these styles of masturbation can lead to greater desensitization on a physical level. So even if they're not even using porn at all, but they're masturbating in these ways, they can still experience the delayed ejaculation once they get to the bedroom and they're trying to enjoy sex with a real partner. The simplest prescription to stop all this and to reverse all this, which is the good news, it is reversible, is to stop your porn use and stop masturbation. And if you do this and you give yourself long enough and you're practicing real intimacy, it doesn't have to be right from the beginning. You can just give yourself time completely abstinent. before you jump into the bedroom with a partner and practice real intimacy. But at some point, that practice of rewiring your brain to respond to the stimulation given to you by a partner and the touch of another person is going to be necessary to fully recover from delayed ejaculation. And that simple prescription is going to work for pretty much everybody, but it's not the only path forward. If you don't want to be completely abstinent for a while, if you want to continue to be able to enjoy masturbation, then you often can, but you need to change the way that you're masturbating. Of course, doing it without pornography substitutes, not looking at anything. If you're fantasizing, keeping it as realistic and first person as possible so that you're imagining what a real life scenario might be like for you in the future, the kind of sex that you want to be able to enjoy in your future, rather than imagining yourself as a voyeur, imagining other people having sex or remembering scenes that you've seen on a screen or jumping between scenes. As one gets boring, you jump to the next that's more stimulating. All of that is unrealistic. It's divorced from reality. And so you want to, if you are fantasizing, keep that fantasy grounded in realism as much as possible. If you are masturbating, of course, we want you to use lubrication, because if you're not using lubrication, it's going to be applying more force and friction, and it's not going to feel like intercourse, which is lubricated. And use gentle stimulation. You want it to feel as much like intercourse as possible. And to that goal, it's perfectly acceptable if you're struggling with DE and you want to change your masturbation habits so that you're accustoming your body to the sensations of real intercourse, to use a sex toy, like a male sex toy, so that you can feel the sensations of penetration. Of course, it's going to be still quite different from making love with a real person, but physically, the sensations that your penis is receiving are going to be much more similar to the sensations of real sex than they would be if you were using your hand. But you can still use your hand if you wish. Just keep that stimulation gentle and lubricated. Don't force orgasm or finish yourself off once you get to the point where you are practicing real sex. If you're having real sex and intercourse and penetration isn't enough to get you there, don't start trying things like fantasizing about porn or about a more extreme scene in your mind in order to get yourself there. And don't use other forms of stimulation like touching yourself or asking her to touch you with your hand, with her hand, in order to reach orgasm. If you're really wanting to get to the point where you want to be able to orgasm for penetration, you need to nudge your body in that direction. Basically, draw the line and say, hey, body, if you want to have an orgasm, it's going to be during penetrative sex. Everything else is off the table. That's one strategy. Of course, you can still practice orgasm with other forms of touch. You can ask your partner to use their hands or apply, different levels of stimulation with the kind of fantasy and sexual practices that you're engaging with your partner. But if you're doing that and you're finding that you're not seeing the progress you want, then you can take it to that next level and draw that boundary. I don't orgasm unless it's with penetrative sex, at least until you're at that point where you're able to do that consistently. And then you can explore and experiment with introducing other sexual play into your relationship. Let go of expectations is another big tip. So if you're hoping and expecting that your body is going to get to that point where you can have an orgasm every time you have sex, it places pressure upon the situation, and it can be more frustrating, and it can actually get in your way of enjoying yourself enough and relaxing enough that it just is allowed to happen naturally. You want to be able to focus on enjoying the present moment without being stuck on that outcome of I'm going to have an orgasm today. If you can do that and you can relax and just enjoy the present moment, not only are you going to have a better time if you don't orgasm, but you're actually getting out of your own way and allowing the orgasm to happen more naturally and more easily if your body and brain are resensitized enough and ready for that with your partner. You can also try a variety of sexual positions. You can, with some careful online searching or with a book of sexual positions, Try some more, learn some more, and try those with your partner. And you might find that if your body and their body is oriented in a certain way, it helps you relax and get to that climax more easily. So if you're stuck on the same 2 or 3 sexual positions, try introducing a few others. Play around with it, and you might find that you have a much easier time. Lastly, some men do find that the application of vitamin E oil to their genitals does help with regaining some of that physical sensitivity. Last bit of advice for this actually is just to be patient. It's going to take however long it takes. Choose your approach, whether you're going to be completely without masturbation or you're going to masturbate, but it's going to be with lubrication and more gentle stimulation. Choose your approach with how you're going to rewire, communicate with your partner, and stick to that path for a few months. And if it's working and you're seeing progress, great, keep going. If you're not seeing as much progress as you'd like, then alter your approach. But be patient with it. However long it's going to take to get to the point where you are able to enjoy climax consistently with your partner, it's not going to be nearly as long, likely, as you've been masturbating and using porn. For me, I had delayed ejaculation as well as ED. As I told you, I was able to have sex for the first time about 2.5 months into no porn, no masturbation. And it was probably another 6 months after that of gradual progress. I was seeing progress throughout that 6 months, but another 6 months until I was able to consistently achieve orgasm during sex. So that gives you an idea of one person's experience of delayed ejaculation. If you want to get my help personally with anything like this, you can go to the link below, the link tree, and find ways to work with me one-on-one or in a group. And I've seen and helped hundreds of men get through these types of issues, whether it's a sexual dysfunction like DE or ED, addiction to porn, relationship issues, and emotional issues that are intertwined with their pornography use and their masturbation habits. You can get out of this cycle, but it's much easier with the help of someone who's been there before and who can help to guide you and show you the options and show you the path. So look forward to meeting you if you do want to work with me. Otherwise, see you in the next video.